Well, hello there.
Hiya.
Hello, you good people, friends, lovers. Thank you for joining us. This is 5 Minutes with Robert Nasir and Amy Nasir. We're glad you are here on this fine Sunday, July 17th, 2022. The 198th day. We're getting up in those numbers. 198th day of this, your best year yet. You've got 167 days left to make it so. 161 days until Christmas. Krampus Day. Well, because there's 106 days until Halloween.
Yay!
And in preparation for Halloween, it's still just over 3 months away, but Amy, where did you go last night?
I went to the Oddities and Curiosities Expo in Novi, Michigan, and it's basically a bunch of creepy stuff, a lot of spooky things. Crazy stuff. If you look in the show notes, you'll see a link to it. Because this is a touring company, kind of like a science fiction convention or Comic-Con. Oddities and Curiosities. And it's basically...
super creepy stuff.
You know, I mean, it's just, basically people gathering together to sell... Well, there were too many taxidermy shops this year, so a lot of dead things, a lot of bones. And they're like, well, these were humanely sourced or whatever they say. I'm sure that's not true. But,
how do you get a hold of bones? Them bones. Them dry
But there were
bones.
other really lovely things that I thought, just very creative stuff. Like for instance, I have this, I've got these that I'm wearing right now. These are glow-in-the-dark stars.
Glow-in-the-dark stars. We got to get out the black lights.
And then I also have these... kind of chartreuse sort of moon-shaped earrings. I don't know if you can kind of see that.
It's kind of showing up on camera there. Sorry about you podcast listeners, but imagine
really
concentric crescent moons in a kind of glowing lime green or light green.
You are getting excited about our show and will send us money. No,
so we're certainly getting excited about Halloween.
That'd be nice. But also one other thing is that there's these beautiful guillotine earrings.
Guillotine. You have guillotines hanging from your ears.
Yeah, as opposed to crosses as an instrument of torture, right?
That's a good point. That's a good point. People have crosses hanging from their ears.
So macabre.
Is it really any different to have guillotines?
No.
Guillotines hanging from your ears?
So you make
I'm
way.
for it. Well, it may sound like we're blaspheming, but, if I were to jump ahead to what have we been listening to this week, well, we will talk about that. But first, on this date, this was the date that Disneyland opened in 1955. Now, I've got a link in the show notes to 7 things you may not know about Walt Disney. Came from very humble beginnings. He was the original voice of Mickey Mouse. He actually voiced that character. They started the series in 1927. The first short was in 1928, Steamboat Willie. Let's see, it was 47 with Mickey and the Beanstalk that Walt Disney was simply too busy to stay in the studio and do voice acting, and that role was finally given to someone else. But yeah, Walt Disney was the original voice of Mickey Mouse. Also, Disney produced propaganda films for the U.S. government during World War II. Always amusing to see the Mickey Mouse and the gang punching out Adolf Hitler. Der Fuhrer's face. Some of you have already seen that cartoon. Otherwise, look it up. You will find that. He was a train buff. Walt Disney was into trains. One of the reasons why Disneyland has its own train. The initial plans for Disneyland were small scale. It was not going to be that big a deal. And it turns out there was a bit of there's a whole story about the opening of Disneyland, again, on this date. I lost my... Oh, there we go, 1955, yes. 10,000 tickets were sold, but a bunch of people came in with counterfeit tickets. They didn't have the kind of technology we have nowadays for keeping you from making counterfeits of that kind of thing. Also, Disney has won more Academy Awards than anybody else. Disney holds the record for the most individual Oscar wins at 22 and nominations at 59. And finally, Walt Disney was not cryogenically frozen. A lot of people still believe that. It was
Yep.
a word that was going around that Disney wanted to be cryogenically frozen, and so he had himself put into a frozen... No, that was not.
However, he did, before building his Main Street USA in Disneyland in Anaheim, California, he went to Dearborn, Michigan at the Henry Ford in Greenfield Village and saw how Henry Ford was laying out his own personal and wonderful village of inventors and innovation and farmers and all that. So
Damn straight.
Yeah.
Where Amy works, at the Edison Institute.
It's where
Greenfield
Disney started.
Village. That's how you do it. That is how you get that done.
Yes.
Also, on this date in 1967, this was the date that Jimi Hendrix dropped out as the opening act for the Monkees.
The Monkees.
The Monkees. Now, we've got a bunch of the Monkees fans in our audience. I've, of course, one of them myself. But I did not know until, I was looking up the amazing and important things that happened on this date. On this date, July 17th, 1967, Jimi Hendrix was warming up for the Monkees. In fact, there was there were 7 shows into the tour. Hendrix had been opening repeatedly for the Monkees, and he did not get a good reception from the Monkees audience, which probably isn't too surprising.
Yeah, he's probably a little too trippy for them.
Yeah,
actually.
imagine if you were a fan of the Monkees, and, Daydream Believer, and Jimi Hendrix comes out. As Mickey Dolenz later recalled, quote, Jimmy would amble out on the stage, fire up the amps, break out into purple haze, and the kids in the audience would immediately drown him out with, we want Davy! God, it was embarrassing. Jimi Hendrix managed to get through only a total of 7 dates with the Monkees, culminating in his final show on July 17, 1967, which may or may not have ended with Hendrix saluting the crowd with his middle finger. So, I would have loved that. Would that have been a great show to see?
That'd been great.
Jimi Hendrix warming up for the Monkees. Also today, July 17th, is Lake Superior Day. I've mentioned Lake Superior before. Lake Superior is the world's largest freshwater lake by surface area.
It's correct.
By volume, it's actually the 3rd largest, but it is the largest in surface area. It holds 10% of the world's fresh water supply.
And if you don't know geographically, it's in between the Upper Peninsula of Michigan and Canada.
That's right. Now, Lake Superior being where it is, as far north as, crazy cold places like England, for example, it's the craziest thing. If you haven't seen it yet, find a map that superimposes Europe over North America. And you find out that most of the places in Europe that you thought were like temperate, Mediterranean climate, a lot of them are actually in Canada or at Canada's latitudes. But anyway,
it's
Lake
just
Superior,
a Gulf Stream or something that
the average water temperature in Lake Superior is 40 degrees
Fahrenheit. Yeah.
Fahrenheit.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know what that is centigrade. What is that, 2? 3? And it's the funniest thing because we have been in Lake Superior. We have gone swimming in Lake Superior.
Yes, in August.
It is a bracing experience.
It's great.
Now, we did do it with bathing suits on. We didn't go full polar bear club and do it naked, but close enough. And the funny thing, of course, is you get in colder than a thing that is cold, and then you get used to it. And you swim, and you're like, yeah, I guess it's still cold, but I'm used to it. So, and it's funny to me because, of course, if you're not from Michigan or from northern parts of the United States or from Soviet Kanukistan, from Canada, you're not used to this, and you're like, I go down to Florida. I have family in Florida. I have more family in Florida than we still have in Motown. And I'll go down. Last time I went to my mother's house. And she said, yeah, you probably can't use the swimming pool because I haven't had the heater running. and this was, early summer. I thought, heater not running. How warm is the water? She said, yeah, the water is only 64 degrees or whatever it was, 60 something. And I thought, that's warmer than 40 degrees. That's going to be, and I was fine swimming in the water. So it's just funny what, everything is relatives. That was Einstein's theory of relatives. Everything is relative. So happy Lake Superior Day. If you ever get that chance, go to Lake Superior. Of course, it's beautiful. It's clear. There are places in the lake where you can see 99 feet through the water, underwater. It's the clearest water you ever want to see.
It's really beautiful, and the sand is white sand.
Sand is white. The rock formations from the water, painted rocks in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan is beautiful and absolutely worth seeing. And the fun thing about having a Lake Superior Day, too, if you're a Twitter fan, you may know that Lake Superior is on Twitter. I don't actually know who is responsible for posting Lake Superior's tweets, but Lake Superior is surprisingly clever and funny. Link is in the show notes. And feisty. Lake Superior is much more feisty than I would have ever
I've never seen the Lake Superior Twitter. I didn't even realize they were on Twitter.
Yeah, well, you're not really a Twitter person. Yeah. I've never been a Twitter person until I became a celebrity, and then you've got to be on there. Excuse me a second. Excuse me, let me hit the mute button for a second.
Right.
So...
Okay, that was just me dancing.
Thank you for tolerating that. I'm sure that looked terrible on camera, but here's the thing. It's day 8. It's day 8 of Robert with COVID. Now, we took last Sunday off. Came back from Ocon, tested positive for coronavirus.
He did. I did not.
Amy did not.
I did not get COVID.
You may remember that Amy caught coronavirus in May.
Yes.
Went through it.
So fun.
And I didn't catch it. And we did not socially distance, but somehow I just didn't catch it.
Right.
So now it's the other way around. I've got it, which is why I may sound,
less than energetic
or intelligent. Yeah, less than intelligent, less than alive, aware, conscious. And Amy doesn't have it. So,
Nope.
We went to the conference, Ocon 2022, which we are now calling, of course, Ocomnicron. And because so many people, that's the thing, not just this week with me, how did you not catch it, but how were you in that place where everybody gets super spreader event? Anyway, without getting into that, if you're wondering, why is Robert coughing? Why is his voice so rough? Why does he not seem to have a brain? There's the answer to your question. So, in the chat, here's what I want to hear. Have you ever been to Disneyland or Disney World?
Yes.
Because I know, Amy, you have been, right?
I've been to Disneyland once when I was 4, and as an adolescent to Disney World a few times.
So you've been to both?
Yes.
Wow. See, I never went to Disneyland or Disney World. And I guess there's a Disneyland Paris, so let us know if you've been there.
Yeah, let's get Robert to Disney World, all right? Let's get him there.
Oh, yeah. Enter the Super Chat. Oh, wait, we don't have Super Chat.
Okay, go to PayPal and look up Robert Nasir.
Oh, yeah. Go to robertnasir.com. You can become a patron,
yes,
or you can go to PayPal. Send me to Disneyland. But it's interesting, too, because Disneyland Paris apparently had a rough start. 10, 15 years ago when they first opened it. It was originally opened as Euro Disney Resort, and then they changed their name, and some people believe it was because Euro Disney Resort had kind of a bad reputation. It was a rough start. But anyway, there's now Hong Kong Disneyland Resort and Shanghai Disney Resort. There's, of course, the Disney Cruise Lines. And, our friend Rebecca knows all about the Disney stuff because she goes on Disney cruises and world traveler, globetrotter with the kids, super cool stories. There's a Disney Vacation Club, but there's also a Tokyo Disney Resort.
Yep.
So we'll see about that because we've said it before, and there's progress on this now. Next year, Amy and I are going to Japan.
In May. sometime.
In May. Oh, a month has been set.
Yeah, a month
okay,
has been set.
The plans are progressing. Well, it turns out there is a Disney resort in Tokyo.
Yeah, there's also there's a Universal Studios Harry Potter World in Japan. I forget exactly where it's at, but we might go there too. Who knows? We'll see. It's going to be quite strange.
Yeah, apparently there's a
so
Disney
amazing.
Sea in Tokyo. According to Equal to Reality here.
AKA Alex.
Yeah, Steven says he has an annual pass to Knott's Berry and Six Flags Magic Mountain, which of course is competing. Oh, and E2R says I've been to Epcot and Disneyland's Paris. Wow.
Well, Steven has an annual pass to Disneyland.
Oh yeah, I see that now
That's,
too. All right. Well,
oh.
you folks, you're way ahead of me. Way ahead of me. Which is cool. I am glad that you have been to these places. Incidentally, also Equal to Reality says he's been to Epcot. That is the one Disney property that I have been to. I did make it there with a friend of mine, so that was cool.
Apollo says, the Nacers, big in Japan.
Big in Japan, yeah, well, we will be. Yes, yeah, it's so cool to see Emily. Emily is in the chat as well. She checked in earlier, and I do appreciate that you are there. All right, before I get too much more into the chat, and I will catch up on that in uno momento, I just need to jump to, because there was one more thing. Oh, wait, it was just Happy National Ice Cream Day.
Ice cream.
It's funny because we haven't been stocking ice cream, but because I went to Okramnikon and spent 10 days in Washington, D.C., I did put ice cream sandwiches in the freezer for our house sitter. And I don't know if she opened them at all because we ended up eating them when we got back. And I had one of the last ones just before the show, so I am properly celebrating National Ice Cream Day. If you are not, if you needed a good, compelling, solid, unquestionable reason to take in those delicious dairy carbs, it's National Ice Cream Day. How can you say no? How can you resist? How can you refuse? And I think the answer is you can't. You simply can't. All right. Good stuff. What are we listening to this week? Well, I've been listening to a book. The book that I'm listening to is called Designing Your Life. This was recommended to me by Tal Tsafani. I think I've also heard about it on a couple of the other podcasts, including Tim Ferriss. So I'm reading that book. I'm reading it on audiobook, and now I need to go back and read it on Dead Tree, paper version, which I also have, because there are exercises. And I have to figure out if this book is really, really cool and really good and really valuable, and I need to present it to you, or is it just another one of these books that has good ideas but doesn't really get you where you need to go. So we'll see. Obviously, my challenge with self-help, with any kind of self-improvement books, is does it really get you to do the thing? And obviously, a lot of that's got to come from you, but isn't that always the way that we read these things, we pick out a few good things from them, but we don't do it all because it doesn't quite suit us, our life situation, anybody's life situation. So I will report with you on that. But also, under what we're listening to this week, I have to bring up our own show. Our Thursday show, Life on Earth with Robert and Amy Nasir.
That was a good show. Those Nacers are pretty good.
Considering the one guy had COVID and he wasn't at his best, Amy was cool. So
yeah, she basically did the show.
She wrote the show. She came up with the topic. And the topic was, how's your universe? Yes. Reason and trying times.
How is your universe, Robert?
My universe is virusy. It's like, man.
Oh, I think your universe is pretty heroic.
Well, I've been doing, part of the challenge with catching a really contagious disease, which is still, kind of serious, even though we've got great remediations now, and the hospitals now know what to do if you get a really bad case. They don't put you on a respirator until you expire. They've got it. But the problem is you have to quarantine. You're isolated. Man, that's terrible. Now, I count my blessings because I'm isolating +1. I feel especially bad for people who isolate, totally isolated. So I guess I can't complain. I need the world's smallest violin for that. Yeah.
Yes. John on YouTube, he says, my universality is universal. But is your universe universal? I guess.
And is it live, or are you in a Universal studio?
Is it live, or is it Memorex? I don't know.
See, the challenge with trying to go to Disney World, the Florida iteration, is that what we're going to end up doing is instead going to Universal Studios and the Harry Potter experience.
Which I have never been to. And I'm going through the Harry Potter books. Actually, I'm listening to the Harry Potter books this week and last week. And I'm in book 7, and it's great. And I need to go back and just kind of bookmark all the little areas in which, Dumbledore is just so wise, and he has so many good things to say. And it's great.
You see how I knew I wasn't going to have to explain myself. So, yes, we do need to get to the Harry Potter experience in Florida. Oh, Petya says she's been many times to Disneyland. Actually lived for a few years so close I was watching the summer fireworks for free. Used to be so affordable, not the case anymore. Yeah, that's one of the interesting things when I've looked into Disney World, and also looked into the Harry Potter experience. The pricing on that is complicated, and it's also substantial. So yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And Douglas, now we haven't mentioned Ayn Rand yet, although we're kind of getting there talking about our show on Thursday, says, well, no, objectivism has won when YouTube captions Ayn Rand instead of Iran or Iron Rand. Yes, they sometimes get it right, but it's pretty damn rare and unacceptable in so many ways.
So, Robert, you had mentioned Lake Superior, and did you mention how many people succumbed?
Speaking of oddities and curiosities, an interesting thing about Lake Superior is how many human bodies are in it. It came up in the Yarn Brook show earlier because he's doing, there's a sidetrack. Yarn Brook, for $100, will review a song.
Any song?
Any song. I'll tell you what, if you go to paypal.com/Robert Nasir and put $100 in there, I'll not only review a song for you, but I will tell you exactly what you want to hear about it.
Well, no, I was going to say you would do a cover of it as well.
I would record a cover of any song.
You will record
I shouldn't say any song, because somebody will give me, a 20-minute Coheed and Cambria piece. And I don't know, for $100 maybe I would. I won't promise the cover will be very good, but
it would have to be at least 1 minute of the song, I would say, of a rendition from Robert Nasir.
I did record an original song for Ginny B. Clark.
Yes, that's right, you did.
It's only 20 seconds long, and it's only one verse, but, the price was right, because it was free. But yes, send me a PayPal, and I will record any song. Except, the trouble there, too, is copyright.
Yeah, that's true. But you would just send it to them, not necessarily play it.
Well, what I would do is I would post it on YouTube, but not make it a part of an episode.
Right.
And then they just give me a copyright strike and tell me I can't monetize it, and I'm like, I don't monetize anything, so that's fine. So that would be cool.
But I think Robert knows a lot about music theory, song structure.
Yeah.
You do, and music I think theory. That would be amazing. Anytime you've actually talked about songs on the show, I'm serious.
Gosh. I have a theory about music.
Are amazing. You really bring it out. You can talk about lyrics, and we can talk about lyrics. We can talk about the meaning of lyrics.
Well, and you're very flattering. Of course, I deserve it all, but you are very flattering.
And you can also connect emotions to the particular structure of the chords and how that all interweaves together and everything. And, because it's true. I mean, you have, changes of key and all of that. And I barely know what I'm talking about, but Robert can give you that information. And if you have any specific requests for any specific song or lyrics or whatever that you would like us to comment on, please go ahead and send us a donation via PayPal or Patreon. Thank you very much.
I know just enough that my favorite version of the distracted boyfriend, jealous girlfriend meme is when the boy labeled the dominant, the fifth chord, seventh, instead of looking at his girlfriend, who's represented by the one or the major key resolution, is distracted by the sixth chord, the minor chord. I get that much, and that is just enough to find that funny, and that's all I need. But yes, by all means, feel free to AMA, ask me anything you want about music. I always have an answer, even though the answer is sometimes I don't know. But yes. And so, yes, we were talking about reason in trying times. How's your universe? I love the expression that Ayn Rand, let's see how YouTube captures that, the expression that Ayn Rand would use when she would greet somebody. Instead of saying, how are you, she would ask, how's your universe? Mm-hmm. How's your view of the world? How's your sense of life? Do you have that sense that values are possible, success is achievable? Or are you feeling swamped by the challenges of life and the presence of ne'er-do-wells out there? Love that question, how's your universe? So I watched that episode. It was a good one. It was worth watching, even though I was probably about the same as I am today. Challenging day, not enough sleep last night, but that's plumbing.
Yeah.
You know what I love?
You love plumbing?
I love plumbing. I love modern plumbing. I love running water.
Yes.
And the reason why is because for the last day we haven't been able to run the water.
And this is why I say you're heroic.
Oh, well, thank you. Our drains stopped draining.
It's so fun when the drain stops draining.
At our home. And that's an annoying thing to have happen.
It's very annoying.
Yeah.
And this was a drain in our basement. And
well, the main drain, yeah. So it affects all the drains.
Yes.
Every drain in the house. And yeah, if you ran, and it had a trickle, so you could probably wash your hands and be fine. If you hadn't ran any water for the last half hour, you could, flush your commode. But much more than that, and the water would just back up the basement floor. And it turns out you can actually fix that kind of thing yourself.
Yes.
All you need is a plumber's snake.
Or what they call an auger.
An auger, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, of course, I didn't know any of that. And here, I wonder if I can put that up on the screen. Let's see. If I can do this super quick. Of course, the people listening to the podcast afterwards are saying, why are you doing this to us?
Yeah, well, a big shout out to Chandler, who his job is plumbing for real, for professionally. And we contacted him last night, and he gave us some interesting advice that we took. And but in other news,
well, I like that picture better. The picture of me doing the plumbing work isn't as good as the picture of me flying away. Let's just leave
there
that
you
up
are.
there.
Robert did this morning, and it was so cute.
All right.
It's adorable.
Anyway, a 25-foot auger snake didn't get the job done. Shout out to Chandler. We reached out to a friend, who we've known through the Ethernet forever, but met him at Ocon. I think we met him in Austin, right? And he said, yeah, well, you probably need a 50-footer. Oh, that's all I needed to hear was, yeah, you did the right thing. You just need heavier equipment.
Yes.
So yeah, went from a 25-foot quarter-inch auger to a 50-foot half-inch
auger. Which you didn't have to actually purchase. You rented.
Now, I went with the rental. I could have purchased one, but it would have been a manual one with a handle. And if you know what I'm talking about, you'd be like, no, you got to get the electric one.
Yeah.
And so I got the electric. It wasn't the self-feeding electric one. I don't know if they had any of those in stock for rental. Anyway, long story short,
exciting.
Didn't call a plumber on a Sunday morning.
Right.
Did it myself.
Did it yourself, Robert. Thank you so much for saving my life.
And now I know. Now I know how to snake a main line and not just a sink or shower or commode.
I'm just happy that it wasn't like some sort of tree root cracking the drain pipe or something.
That was a
That would have
possibility.
been bad.
And for that, you're probably going to call a plumber.
Or,
And you may even have to have, your lawn dug up and your sewer lines replaced.
$25,000 or something. Ooh. No.
But I'll skip ahead since we mentioned Chandler. You see, we had the fun of meeting with Angel at the end of OCon.
Yes.
The day after OCon wraps up, Amy arranges to get us on kayaks.
Kayaking.
And we're out on the Potomac River. And you're on a kayak on the Potomac River.
Nice.
You're paddling by the Lincoln Memorial and the Washington monuments there, and beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And Angel joined us for this. The three of us were going around President's Island. I think that one was Roosevelt Island. It was a great time.
Yeah, and then there's on the other side in Virginia, on the other side of the Potomac, you've got these not skyscrapers, but taller, corporate buildings.
Beautiful.
It was just amazing. You had this jungle, and then you had these corporate buildings, and then you had this city, and then you had these monuments, and then you had these beautiful bridges.
Yep.
And I actually saw a fish jump out of the water and go back in. It was so fun.
The flying fish of the Potomac River.
Oh, I loved it.
Yeah.
And there were airplanes constantly flying above us, flying past us. Constantly. It was interesting.
So in that regard, and especially, again, sending a text message to Chandler, who, again, had exactly the right advice, because he said, I don't remember the words, he said basically, you're doing the right thing, but, you would need a bigger machine. Went out and got a bigger machine, and it turned out I was doing the right thing.
Yes.
So my Post-it note for the week, I'm going to jump right to the end. I'm going to jump right to the Post-it note of the week. Because my Post-it note for the week says reach out.
Yes.
Some of the advice that I've given is you should, in Quent Cordaire's words, one doesn't deserve to be one's own harshest critic, without also being one's most devoted fan. The Jordan Peterson version of that is you should take care of yourself the way you would take care of somebody you're responsible for. Or as I put it, you should be at least as good to yourself as you are the other people that you love. So when I say reach out, if somebody came to me and said, Robert, I'm trying to solve a plumbing problem here, and I can't figure it out, I think I'm doing all the right stuff. And I would say to that person, well, I know our friend Chandler knows something about plumbing. You should reach out to him. And if that person said to me, well, I don't really like to bother people. I don't like to reach out. I don't know if I should. No, reach out to people. Ask for help. Ask for advice. Ask for hugs. Ask for whatever it is you need. Same advice you would give to somebody else. You deserve all that yourself. And that's why my Post-it, to remind me, because I'm that kind of guy who's like, well, I don't want to bother people, unless I really have something to offer them. I don't want to just reach out and ask for stuff. People love it when you ask for stuff.
They do.
I mean,
and we love it when people ask us things.
Yeah. So true. So do that thing. And I just realize I'm neglecting the chat here, but I know Amy's keeping up with that.
Yeah. I've got, there's some questions people are asking.
Oh, Chandler is in the chat. How cool.
Isn't that great?
Awesome. It's like Jeopardy had a question for something I learned in high school. Finally, the knowledge paid off. See, and it's fun when somebody comes to you with a question or comes to you for advice and you actually have the answer. And, heck, sometimes you can charge for it. But it's just, it's one of the reasons why I love learning things like, well, what do you do if the main line to the sewer of your house doesn't seem to be working? I like knowing the answers to things because it's fun when somebody comes and says, hey, what do you know about this thing? Oh, yeah, do this. So, yes, there's my Post-it note for the week. Says reach out. I'm keeping it simple this week. It's all I got because, again, I'm not
we got some
as
questions
here as usual. So, yes, what's in the chat? What have I missed here?
All right. So,
wait, I'm going to mute for a second and cough because COVID. Hold on just a second, folks. One moment. All right, good. We're back.
All right. So, we've got...
yes, bring it on.
Let's see. Bonnie asks me if I made my earrings. Now, I didn't actually make these earrings or these particular earrings.
It's a good question because you do make a lot of your own earrings.
I purchased them, and what I do, because I have like small hoops on my ears, And to make it a little bit easier, so I have to take the small hoops out and then possibly irritate my earlobes and everything. What I do, I don't know if you can see this, but I have these little lobster clasps that I take the hooks off of it and then I put lobster clasps on.
So all of your earrings have clasps on
And
them except for your hoops?
That. Yeah, exactly.
Huh.
So now you know, Robert.
And those are the same clasps you use if you're making jewelry, right?
Exactly.
Making necklaces and bracelets.
Exactly. So
Wow.
they're called lobster clasps.
I mean, I've noticed that sometimes, but I haven't noticed that you always do that. Well, that makes things easy.
I do. And then we have
Very cool.
Jim asks you, just so I always know who you are, do you have any other aliases besides God, someone else, and Mr. COVID?
God, someone else, Mr. COVID. No, I think that covers it.
No, I think you've been called Honest Bob.
Well,
that's just
yes.
If
I'm selling cars, if I'm selling a used automobile, I may answer to Honest Bob. It's when I started podcasting, March of 2020. That's when I changed everything in the universe to my real name. Now, there are identity thieves out there who have tried to take advantage of that, so maybe that was a mistake. But, yeah, everything out there is Robert Nasir.
Daniel is in the chat on YouTube, and he says, Lobster class? They need to learn. No, clasp. So, CLASP.
Yes. Well, we all need to go to Lobster class so that we can understand hierarchies the way that Jordan Peterson wants us to. Remember.
I was gonna say, like, how do you eat a lobster and dip it in butter? Mm.
Oh yeah. Well, we had an interesting conversation about that too, because when you're on the Potomac, when you're on the East Coast, you are reminded.
Yeah.
If you're in Virginia, Maryland, that area, lobsters used to be poor people's food. Mm-hmm. Especially going back to the tragic days of slavery, when. They wouldn't necessarily, people in charge wouldn't necessarily let you be eating the cows and the chickens, but you could go down to the water and you could find lobster.
Yeah.
It's the craziest thing. I don't know if they had butter, hot butter and
Alex, a.k.a. Equal to Reality, says, would we recommend moving to the Chicago area?
I know almost nothing about the Chicago area except that you should not move there.
You shouldn't move there.
It's like a prettier version of Detroit. It's very expensive if you want to live where there's not a lot of crime.
Right. And it's cold in the winter.
Now, with that said, you could always ask Jonathan Honig because he loves Chicago.
True.
And there are things to love in Chicago. The music scene in Chicago is good. The theater scene in Chicago is excellent. And, there's all those Sullivan buildings and, some great architecture. They are still building skyscrapers. Last time we were there, which was maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, but they were building. So, Chicago is beautiful in a lot of ways if you've got the kind of job that will afford you the lifestyle you want in a city like Chicago. But, if you've got that kind of money, why don't you go to California? Well, I don't know. Are there any decent cities left in California? So, the short answer is I don't know.
I would go there and see how you like it first. In the wintertime, go there in February, see how you can manage. It's just very cold. And I would say it's colder than Detroit. And definitely colder than the suburbs in Michigan here. And it's just a little bit... I don't know. There's something... I don't know. It's okay. But if you ever go to Chicago, make sure you go to Streeterville, which is near Navy Pier, and you'll find all these Streeterville references. Well, that's my ancestor, George Wellington Streeter, and you'll find
there's a statue of
an
him
interesting statue of him there.
Yeah.
That's my ancestor, as a matter of fact. So, very interesting person. He's a bit of a crazy man, but...
is that your great-grandfather or your great-grand-uncle?
It's sort of like great-grand-uncle or something like that.
Very cool.
Yeah. Stephen, okay, 25 words or less. 2 questions from Stephen. How exactly does Rand solve the is-ought problem to identify the source of rights?
There's a couple of steps there. The is-ought problem is solved by understanding what you mean when you say you ought to do something. If there is an ought, if there is something that you should do, the should implies a standard, a purpose.
A normative value.
A normative value. And that is defined by what is. Take human life. Standard is life. If you want to live, you ought to exercise virtuous actions. You ought to eat healthy food. You ought to move and create and produce. There's nothing more complicated about it than that, unless you start with a transcendent metaphysics, a supernaturalism, the idea that your oughts come from something besides the obvious facts of reality that tell you if you want to live, you ought to do certain things. You must do certain things. What was the second half of that question?
All right, that is going to be, metaphysically, people need to think, be rational, work, etc. How does that translate to, therefore, they have rights?
Good question, because the answer is almost in the question. In order to work, which means to produce the things that life requires and trade them with others to get the things they're producing that your life requires, in order to do any of that, you have to exercise reason, your mind. You have to think. The link between that and rights is you need to be free to act on reason, to act on your conclusions, to act on your thinking. And you need to leave everybody else free to do the same. That is where the oughts, where the values your life requires, come from, the exercise of your own best judgment, reason, thinking. So the is-ought problem is only a problem if you started in the wrong place.
Very good. Thank you very much, Robert. Jim asks, what about asking for help with something you're embarrassed about?
A great question.
It's a great question. And I can take a stab at this.
Because you've admitted in that question that there are things you're embarrassed about. And isn't that embarrassing?
I'll tell you what. If you have the courage to say, I did something embarrassing, you're going to find people come out of the woodwork and say, oh, I totally understand because I did this embarrassing thing myself. And they'll want to empathize with you. And that's a really good thing. It's just like asking for help. People will want to help. They want to see you succeed. When people overcome embarrassment and they have the perseverance to get through it, that's a real thing to be proud of. And that takes a lot of courage. And you're going to find more people who have embarrassed themselves than not. Honestly, don't trust anybody who says that they haven't embarrassed themselves because they're lying. They must have at some point in their lives done something that they found cringeworthy, unless they are some sort of sociopath or something. So
which would be pretty embarrassing.
That would be really embarrassing to be a sociopath. So yeah, I would say, let that go and just say, you know what, a good example was for our meeting for art class today that I run. You were talking about performing, being in performances where you're really embarrassed. You messed up, you froze up, you stopped, something completely fell apart. And I was at a play last night, this Buffy the Vampire Slayer musical extravaganza. It was a one-night performance. It was the only night they actually performed it, and they basically glossed over their tech and sound check right before the show, and everything went wrong. The lighting was horrible. The sound was horrible. It took them a half an hour to get the show up and running. They had an intermission. They got back on. Then they had to stop again. And but you know what? They were all smiles. They came out. They kind of stalled for time. They talked with the audience. They answered questions. And really, they kept it going. They persevered. They did not give in to embarrassment. They did not crawl and go into a fetal position and start crying. No. They got up and they tried to do their best with what they had, and they tried to keep entertaining the audience as much as they could while they were waiting for things to come back up. And it was a very interesting night. It's a night that I don't think I will ever forget, But yeah, if you are embarrassed about something, ask anyway, because you're going to find people are going to be able to relate to you. You may not think that they would be, but they will. There.
Yes. And the worst case scenario. Remember the time we went to the Detroit Institute of Art? The Detroit Institute of Arts is a great art museum in downtown Detroit, Michigan. And we had fun with this. We stayed at a historic home just north of the museum overnight. And it's in Detroit, and you think, oh, you stayed in Detroit? No, this was great. And the next morning it was fun because right next door at the Detroit Institute of Arts, they had, among other things, a morning yoga session. And they held this yoga session in this enormous room, the Diego Rivera Hall. If you know who that artist is, it's designed with his work. But the point is, it's an enormous hall, 3 stories tall, a big, big room. And on a Sunday morning, they have all these folks bringing out their yoga mats. And they had mats for people to borrow and share, too. And they're doing a yoga session there. And people are, in all these postures and positions. And Amy is really good at this stuff. So we went to the museum. And Amy said, oh, can we sit in on the yoga? Of course we can sit in on the yoga session. You go right ahead. And I decided actually to join in. I'm not a yoga person. I don't have a yoga body. I don't know. There's a flexibility there that isn't quite 100% me. And I probably wasn't in my best condition when this is maybe 5-7 years ago. I decided, no, I should participate. I should join in. And so I get out one of the yoga mats, and I'm out there with the other dozen people who are going through the yoga postures.
Mainly women.
Mainly women. And, a lot of, skinny and super flexible women. And, all types. There's some guys out there, too. A couple of middle-aged guys, not many. Most of the guys out there were younger and slender. But I'm out there, in my 50s and in my condition. And I gave them a gift. And the gift that I gave that morning was, there was no longer a guy there who was the worst in the room. Nobody had to suffer the fate of being the most embarrassing yoga practitioner in the room. No, I saved them from that. So be willing to give the gift of setting the lowest possible standard. If you go to somebody with an embarrassing question and you're thinking, well, sure, everybody has embarrassing questions, but this could be really bad. They may think, well, that's over the edge. No. What you're doing is you are now setting that low stand. I'm only halfway joking, but I think the logic applies that everybody has something they're embarrassed about. And even if you think, yeah, but my embarrassing thing, I don't know if anybody wants to be burdened with that. Even if it's worse than anything they've ever done.
I've got some embarrassing things that I've done. This is really bad.
We all do.
Really
all
bad.
do. And that's why everybody has not only the most embarrassing thing they can remember they've done, they have embarrassing things that they've forgotten because they were so much worse even than that. We've all got them. I've talked about a few of them on the show. I'm not smart enough.
You're not shy.
I'm not shy enough.
Right. You're very courageous.
Yes. Yeah, courageous. That's the word for it. Not foolhardy and reckless, but courageous. Yeah. So, do we have any other questions that we should address before we start winding down?
No. I think that's. Wait a minute. Daniel says, hey, Daniel. Yay, Daniel. Why do people commit crime? Don't they know it's illegal?
Somebody should tell them.
So,
that's a great point. If we could put up a billboard. It's funny. Tim Ferriss, at the end of any interview he does, he has a few questions he always asks. And one of them he asks every one of his guests is this. Ask yourself how you would answer this. If you could put up a billboard that everybody would see, that hundreds of thousands of people would drive by every day, what would that billboard say? And no, this is a good one. We should have a billboard out there that says crime is illegal.
Well, let's take that question a little bit more seriously.
Okay, how was the question asked?
Okay, now I'm not seeing it because it's.
I think it's because we mentioned that we're in Motown. People think Detroit. They think, oh, they must know all about crime.
Oh yeah. Why do people commit crime? Don't they know it's illegal?
No, I think Daniel pretty much asked that's.
Sorry, Daniel. This is really, it kind of strikes you funny.
It is funny. He meant it to be funny.
But, so why do people commit crime? Why do people commit illegal acts?
Well, I don't think he really meant it as a question.
I don't know.
I mean, if he really is asking, he's asking the question, why do people sometimes do the wrong thing? Why do people commit actions that are immoral if that is, if you understand philosophy, against their own best interests?
True. Because
why do people do the wrong thing?
Well, they don't think into the future. They don't plan. They don't.
But why not?
And they don't see themselves as capable of actually having a life
right.
That's rational and that's long-term thinking, and that where they're actually using their mind to sustain their life and to flourish.
Now, it's not necessarily that they don't think they can do it. Mm-hmm. They don't think that it'll work. They don't think it's open to them. They don't think it's possible to them.
Right.
If you believe the premise of, for example, Inside the Criminal Mind, Stanton Samanow's book, what they're thinking is, there's nothing wrong with me. It's the world that's bad. And I've got to be bad in order to get what I deserve out of this bad world. People are unfair. People are unkind. Things are unjust. The rich got their riches dishonestly. Everybody got everything dishonestly, and I deserve to get my piece of it.
So Daniel, I guess he was making a bit of a joke. He says, yeah, I called 911 saying someone is trying to kill me. They said on the phone, it's okay. They legally cannot harm me.
That's right. That's right.
And then they hung up.
Well, that's good, because they stay on the phone too long. It costs money, and we are trying to cut spending.
Yes.
So, very good, Daniel. Thank you for that.
Yeah, and and you know what? We also have a question, I think, from Alex. He says, do you like living in Detroit?
Do you like living in Detroit? No, and that's why I live just outside Detroit.
Yeah, we don't live in Detroit. We live in the suburbs.
No.
And,
yeah. Do I like living where I live? Yes.
Yes.
Although I need a bigger house. I need my Patreon to be accelerated. So
and
if you would like to contribute to making this show happen, go to robertnacer.com, click the link for Patreon, and you can put in a monthly contribution, or click PayPal, and you can make a one-time contribution to support this show and send us to Disney World or Disneyland. Well, we'll see how much money comes in. Maybe a Disney cruise. We could be out there with Rebecca and the kids, and Fernando, and having the time of our lives. Except we're having the time of our lives right now every Sunday at 6 o'clock. So
yeah, and I gotta say, I enjoy where I live. There's a great part of Detroit. It's called downtown Detroit, and it's getting better and better every day. They're building more and more. They have all sorts of green spaces and parks and farmers markets, and it's in restaurants, and it's just in art museums, and it's just really lovely. I'm telling you, it's great. And there's also Ann Arbor, which is a half an hour away from us. There's Midland, which is about an hour and a half away. East Lansing is also about an hour and a half away. There's so many places around here that are just really, really wonderful. Dearborn, that where Greenfield Village is 20 minutes away. There's so many places you can go that are, it's just lovely. It really is. There's Cranbrook, there's Meadowbrook, there's all sorts of state parks, all kinds of Great Lakes. Boating, kayaking, snowshoeing in the winter, all sorts of winter sports, skiing, you name it. I mean, we have it all in Michigan. So I'll just say that. And we also have theaters and orchestras, and it's just great. Yeah. Yep.
No, see, we got last minute questions here. Steven says, best 80s movie.
Drop Dead Fred.
Drop Dead Fred.
No.
I'm going to go with Pretty Woman. Because Steven and I have discussed this before. So I'm going to go with Pretty Woman for that one.
No, there's other ones that I know that I would say that they are better than Drop Dead Fred even, but...
Actually, Pretty Woman was 1990, so that would be the answer to his question, best 90s movie. So for best 80s movie, I'm going to go with Victor Victoria.
When was Blazing Saddles made?
Oh, I don't know. It's got to be the 70s, right?
Maybe.
Because, Richard Pryor was co-writer, consultant on that film.
There's some great 80s. Oh, 74, you're right.
Yeah, so best 80s movie, Pretty Woman, or best 80s movie, Victor Victoria, best 90s movie, Pretty Woman. So that's going to be my answer.
What about High Fidelity with John Cusack?
That was a 90s movie, wasn't it?
Oh, was it?
Well, they're listing it as 2000.
Oh.
So call that a 2000s film. I don't know.
Jeez.
Borderline.
Never mind.
But yeah, High Fidelity, definitely worth a watch. John Cusack film. And one of Jack Black's early breakout films.
Yes. Very good.
Great movie. Great fun. Very well done. So there's 3 movie recommendations. Well, 4 if you count Drop Dead Fred, but I'm not sure you should count Drop Dead Fred. That one takes some explaining.
People who love the movie. People who don't like the movie, they don't like it.
That's true. That's one thing you can say about that film is that people who love that film, they do love it, and people who don't like it, they don't like it.
They dislike it a lot.
Unlike most films, people who like it.
It's sort of it's an acquired taste. Yeah. But for fans of Rick Mayall, it's the show to watch. It's the movie to watch.
Oh, and Petya points out there's now a Pretty Woman musical.
Cool.
Which I did hear about. I'm always skeptical of musicals about films I like. But maybe I should look into that. May well be worth seeing. We're kind of picky when it comes to musicals. There was a comment in here by unsigned 32-bit individualist, and it scrolled past, and now I can't remember what it was. He just mentioned it's called Lobster. So this is somebody from the Northeast. So he would know that north of Washington, D.C., you got to get the pronunciation
Lobster.
right.
Gotta go park my car.
Or as some people say, pronunciation. The irony of saying pronunciation.
Pronunciation?
Pronunciation, yeah.
Because there's no OU in between the N's.
That's correct.
It's just a U.
Good. So,
yes.
I think that answered all of the important questions. If there were any we missed, we'll answer them online in texty style.
Apollo asks about Battle Creek.
What about Battle Creek? It's where Kellogg's is. It's where they make the breakfast cereals.
No, don't live there.
Oh, do you want to live there?
No.
No, you don't want to live there.
Don't want to live there.
I mean,
I would say it's not like crime-ridden. It's just boring.
Yeah, there's nothing about it to recommend.
It's where the cereal factory exists.
Yeah.
So
it has its share of bad neighborhoods. So even though it's not the biggest city in Michigan, it doesn't have small-town charm.
Right.
Because it is a bigger city, they've got a Walmart. I mean, I don't know what there is to recommend. I mean, there are nice places around Battle Creek. So I guess if you were in a Battle Creek, but why would you want to be in the middle of nowhere? I don't know. I mean, I've got family in Fenville, and that's a beautiful part of Michigan,
Fenville.
Closer to the water.
I mean,
closer
I
to
would
Lake
say
Michigan.
Traverse City, Holland.
Well, yeah, we'll go further north.
I mean,
well,
even
the
UP.
nice thing about Fenville is it's not so far north, so it's not quite as cold.
Right.
And it's close enough to Chicago that, if you want a less than 2 hour drive into the city, that's an option too.
Midland is a beautiful town. So yeah, there you go.
And Battle Creek sounds exciting, unless you've ever been there. It's a battle at a creek. Good times. So there you go.
Yeah. Well, we should do a whole show on Michigan and how nice Michigan is for all the objectivists moving out to Austin, Texas, where I wouldn't want to be caught dead in. Actually, actually, I would.
If I was dead, I don't think I'd mind being caught.
I would visit there if I were dead, but no, I'm kidding.
Oh, and for Steven and anybody asking about movie recommendations, Jim Ashley, who knows much more about movies than I do, says his favorite 80s movies are Glory and The Verdict. I've seen The Verdict. I don't know if I ever saw Glory. The Verdict, that was Paul Newman, right? He'll correct me if I'm wrong, which would not be that unusual. Or maybe John will correct me, because, that's what he does. In any event, Thank you for joining us,
yes.
man.
This has been a kind of a variety show. I didn't even get to all my notes, Robert.
What notes have you got? You got anything you need to bring up before we wrap?
I'm just going to have to save it for later. You're just going to have to tune in next Sunday.
Oh, man, is next week going to be good? I'm going to be present, like I'm using the word like. Never use the word like. Avoid verbal tics when you are presenting either live or recordings. Don't say like, because it's like a filler word, and it's like, I don't really know what I'm saying, but I'm saying something like this.
So with all that, with the fact that there's 10,000 dead bodies on Lake Superior...
Oh, yeah, we never finished with the 10,000 dead bodies.
I just want to point out this, that there have been about 117 billion people who have been born. There's 7.8 billion people living now, and it's estimated that 109 billion people have lived and died over the course of 192,000 years.
Are you trying to tell me that 10,000 dead people isn't much?
Therefore, 10,000 dead people in Lake Superior is not a lot of dead people, and ghosts are not real.
Are you saying we haven't seen any ghosts from all of those billions of dead people?
There'd be like 109 billion ghosts, or at least a fraction of that. That would take up a lot of space, and you'd be running into them all the time.
But they do on that television show. Maybe the ghosts are just like hams. They want to be stars, so they don't come out unless there's a TV show going on.
And lastly, it's 106 days until Halloween. Thank you very much.
It is 106 days until Halloween's. If you haven't seen Oddities and Curiosities, well, I didn't go, but Amy did, if that's your thing. Link is in the show notes. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being here. Despite that, despite the COVID. If you have any suggestions for future shows, go to 5 Minutes with Robert Nasir or the Facebook group. Let us know. Let us know what you would like to hear, what you want to chat about in the chat, what you want to hear us talk about. If you want to support the show, as I mentioned earlier, you could. You can go to robertnasir.com, find the link to our Patreon, click on it, say, yeah, I want to give this guy $2 a month, $20 a month, whatever it is. Okay, should not do a show with COVID. And, finally, what was the finally thing? I got no finally. Thank you for joining us. We're glad you're here. We wish you, well, what I'm going to wish you this time is good health. I hope you don't catch whatever it is I got in me at Okromnicon. But it'll all be over soon. This is day 8 of my COVID. I can't believe I'm still testing positive. Thank you for joining us. You are the best. You know that we wish you every success. We wish you good times. We wish you get to go to Disney at some point if you haven't been to Disneyland or Disney World.
Yep.
And as always,